Good afternoon, good evening, maybe good morning. My name is Patricia Duncan, and I am the author of actually two coffee table books, A Defining Moment and Defining the Times. And both of the books are about the historic journey of Barack Obama through the eyes of a Colorado photographer, which is myself. My first book was called A Defining Moment, and the journey ended up being a journey defined by God, which led to the Defining the Times. So during this little talk, we're going to have a little bit of fun. You're going to learn a little bit of history. You're going to be able to travel with me as I photograph the once community organizer, the U.S. Senator, and the first African-American president, Barack Obama. So let's begin the journey. The journey started in 2006 when I was given an assignment to go photograph Barack Obama. And the funny thing about it is I told my editor, I said, "Who is Barack Obama?" And she said, "You don't have a clue who he is?" And I said, "No." She said, "Just go do your assignment." And I said, "Okay." So I went to a rally in Aurora, Colorado. He had came out here to campaign for a congressman who is now a congressman named Ed Perlmutter. And I was just enthralled in listening to him speak. And I thought, man, is he going to run for president of the United States? And if he is, as a person, as a voter, he has my support. So in 2007, actually on February 10th, 2007, Barack Obama announced he was running for president of the United States. So I had the privilege to photograph him. I worked for 3 African-American newspapers in Denver, and I was sent on assignments every time he came to Colorado. I got to go on an assignment and take pictures of him. And I got to take pictures of the soon-to-be First Lady, Michelle Obama. It was an amazing, amazing time. Well, during that time, I realized that I needed to finish a project. You know how you start something and you don't finish it for whatever reason? Well, for me, it was I didn't have self-confidence. I didn't have self-belief. I didn't believe in me. Even though I knew I was smart, I knew I was creative, but I didn't have all the other aspects that you need to fulfill your own success. I am a believer in fulfilling your own success. So as I was looking at the pictures to send into the various newspapers, I thought, I'm going to do me a coffee table book, and that's going to be my project. And so as time went on, he became the first African-American president. So I had started along the way of, collecting pictures and creating chapters and all of that. But I would stop, and I would start, and I would stop, and I would start. And so by this time, he has now been elected president. So I'm 2 years behind the 8 ball by the time my first book, A Defining Moment, comes out. So I had to convince people to believe in me, to believe in my project, because this is a project. I did a book because that was the project I needed to do. Did I ever think I would become an author? No. If someone would have told me 8 years ago that I would have been an author, I would have told them, "You're crazy." Not me, not Pat Duncan. So I did. I convinced people to invest in my project, to get the book printed. I started my own publishing company. And here we go. once again, I kept starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And somewhere along the way, and and to this day, I do not know. And maybe it was on this, I used to go to hospice. My mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, and she was making that transition. So I would go and I would work on the pictures. And then when she said, okay, it's no longer Obama time, it's now Ruby time, I would put down my book, put down the pictures, and I would take care of my mom. So on August 15th, 2010, I went to my mom and I said, Mom, I have finally finished the pictures. I am ready for the pictures to go to the designer. And she said, Trisha, I am so proud of you. And I knew one day, whatever the project was that you started out to do, that you would finish it, and you would finish it in grand fashion. So on August 23rd, my mom left me and went home to be with the Lord, but I never looked back. And so in March of 2011, I came out with my first book, A Defining Moment. So what does that mean? That means that I finally, at 55 years old, validated myself. I finally learned what it was like to pat myself on the back. I finally learned that I didn't need people to tell me who I am. I needed to learn to tell myself who I am. I needed to learn how to tell me that you could do anything in this world if you work hard, keep God first in your life, and always believe in you. And that came from my sister. My sister was the first Black Secretary of State of Colorado. And unfortunately, she died in 1999. So I took what she had always told me, and I persevered. So we went on. The book was nominated for NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work for a Debut Author. I got it printed. I sold the book out in 2013, and it was inducted into the Library of Congress. I actually handed it to Dr. Billingston, the Librarian of Congress, in 2013. So I was done. It was all about finishing that project. And so people kept saying, well, you need to come out with the book again. And I said, for what? This was about me, and I didn't feel I needed to come out with the book again, and I didn't. So I took the book totally out of print, and to this day, A Defining Moment is still out of print. Okay, so I now need to finish my journey that I started with him in 2006. So I went to one of the newspapers and I said, do you mind if I use your newspaper to get White House credentials? Because how many African American photographers do you see photographing the president when he lands in cities? She said, fine with me. And she said, if I need pictures, then I'll just let you know. So once again, in his re-election bid, I would go and apply for press credentials. So I had her write a letter, and I sent the letter to the photography gallery in Washington, D.C. And I said, why can't we be up there photographing? Why do we always have to depend on other newspapers to get the president when he lands in other states, especially in Colorado? Because in the 8 years, Barack Obama, I just don't like saying that. How about former President Barack Obama was here 17 times. So we got White House credentials. So for the last 3 years of his presidency, I could go and take pictures of him arriving or departing in any state in the United States. Of course, it was always Colorado. So now I was like finishing out my little journey, and I would just kind of create my own book because God defined this journey. I mean, it's amazing the people that I met in this journey, like Nichelle Nichols, Ura from Star Wars. Who gets to meet those kind of people? Well, I did, because God defined the journey. He continued to define the journey, even though I no longer had a defining moment. So time goes on, and I'm at the last convention in Philadelphia. And I see one of our local news people at the convention. And I went up to her. I was talking to some of the Colorado delegates, and I was just, talking about my book and so on and so forth. And so she said, Patricia, most people call me Pat when I'm a photographer. She said, Pat, I didn't know you did a book. And so I went on to tell her about the book. In the midst of me telling her, I started crying because it reminded me of my mom. Unfortunately, my sister or my dad or my mom didn't get to see my book. And so she said to me, if I can get my news station to tell your story, will you do another book? And I said, I will. Because my father always taught me, your word is your bond. So we finished up the convention. He didn't come to Colorado anymore, and I just started putting things together just in case. I had learned through this journey that I couldn't depend on people, and so I took people at face value. And if they did it, it was awesome, and if they didn't, it was okay. I didn't get disappointed. So she calls me at the end of November, and she said, guess what? And I said, what? And she said, we're going to tell your story. She said, so by us telling your story, will you come out with another book? And I said, I will. So that is why we have now Defining the Times, which is the complete journey of Barack Obama through the eyes of Colorado. The pictures in the book support his speeches. So what does that mean? So I started the book, remember, in 2006 from a defining moment. And it has all of his speeches in their entirety. So the pictures just support what he was saying. To look at the people's faces when they would hear him speak, and the exuberance and the excitement that he brought and what he said to the American people is what the pictures do for his speeches. So I want you to remember this word, liquid courage. So we go along, and in the meantime, I start putting it together. So I can't be creative with all the titles like I did with the defining moment, because we would have had 15 chapters. So I just condensed it down to the beginning, the first election, the first presidency, then the re-election. And so along the way, I met this lady in Washington, D.C., and she had worked for several presidents. And we had became really good friends. So she got an invitation in 2014 to go to President Obama's holiday reception. So she calls me and she says, Pat, would you like to be my guest at the president's holiday reception? And she said, I'm sorry that I'm calling you late notice, but I just got the invitation. And I'm saying, are you kidding me? Really? Of course. So words cannot even describe how I felt, but I felt like this little girl that was doing something unimaginable, maybe like a dream. Like, I'm a dreamer, but I never, and I use never very lightly, I never dreamed that I was going to go to the White House to be the guest of the President of the United States. Wow, who has those kind of dreams? Not me. So the night before I left, I went to an event, and our governor was there. And I went up to him and I said, Governor Hickenlooper, I said, guess where I'm going tomorrow? And he said, where? And I said, I'm going to President Barack Obama's holiday reception. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, what do you mean? What do I mean? I mean, I got invited to go to President Obama's holiday reception. He said, how does that happen? I'm governor of Colorado and I don't get to go. I said, well, that's because I have it like that. So the next day I left and went to Washington, D.C. And so as I was standing in line, because you had to go through 3 checkpoints, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And so when I kept getting closer and closer, I was like, is this really happening? For my girlfriend, this was old hat to her. She'd been like to 4 presidents' holiday parties. So we passed the last checkpoint, and I'm waiting for Secret Service to come and escort me. No Secret Service anymore. You are now the guest of the president, and you are now coming to his house for the party. Well, I am a dog lover, and so the first people that I see is the dogs, and I just loved them. They were just like little people, like big people. Bose is a big dog and Sonny is smaller, and so my girlfriend said it's time to go. So we go. I go up to the door. I'm waiting for someone. I'm waiting for Secret Service to open the door. No, it was like me coming to your home and coming into your house. And I just stood there. I froze. And she came up to me and she said, are you okay? And I said, it's still unbelievable. This is just unbelievable. She's like, okay, we have got to go. Okay, you got to get over this. Let's go. So we go, and I have my camera, and I'm just like in awe. I am in awe. I'm trying to take every picture I can possibly take, and oh man, and go into the red room. But my favorite room was the Vermeil Room. And the Vermeil Room is the First Lady's room. Now you have to remember, we are allowed to go into every single room. There's no ropes. There's none of that. You can go in the room. You can sit on the furniture if you like. Of course, I couldn't imagine sitting on the furniture. And in the Vermeil Room is the First Lady's portraits. And you will see in Defining the Times my favorite portraits. Jackie Kennedy, Mamie Eisenhower, Pat Nixon, just fabulous. That room is just fabulous. And so we go into the East Room, which is also called the Red Room. And that's the largest room in the White House. And that is the room that they do all of their parties and receptions. So we go in there, and the food is grand. And so I go over to the bar, and they say, would you like beer, wine, or we have eggnog, spiked, or regular eggnog? I said, oh, I love eggnog, but I'll take it spiked. So I took the spiked eggnog. And I met amazing people, people from all organizations, presidents, CEOs of companies. It was just a grand time. So I'm continuing, of course, to drink the spiked eggnog. And my girlfriend says, okay, the president and the first lady is coming down from the quarters. And I'm thinking to myself, I have photographed Barack Obama for 8 years. I know how he moves. I know how he turns his head. I know everything about him. But then I'm thinking, but you've never photographed him in the White House. Okay, so we go. I know the perfect position to stand. They come down. My camera's battery dies. I'm like, oh no. So thank you for cell phones. So they come down and I just keep clicking with my cell phone. Don't have an idea if I'm going to get a picture or not, but it's okay because this is going to be for my own private collection. So they come down, they go to the podium. She speaks first, welcoming us to her home, and then he speaks and welcomes us to his home, to their home. And the funny thing about it is he said, ladies and gentlemen, he said, I'm so glad you're here, but please don't take anything. He said, don't take the linen napkins and the china. He said, because I have another 1.5 years to be here, and I don't want to have to spend my money replacing the china and the linen. There are plenty of paper napkins that have the logo, and of course everybody laughed. So they came down off the podium and they came around, and that was the only time they really kind of had ropes. So she comes and I'm close enough that I can reach out and say, hello, Mrs. Obama. Thank you for having me in your home. And she said, thank you so much for coming. So then here comes President Obama. So I stick my hand out and I said, President Obama, all loud. So everybody in the room is quiet. And I said, Governor Hickenlooper didn't understand how I got to come to your holiday reception and he didn't come. He didn't get to come. And he said, oh, you could have brought him. We would have let him in. Okay, remember that liquid courage? Well, it was that spiked eggnog that gave me the courage to say that to President Obama. So that is also in the book, is I wanted you guys to see what it was like to be in the White House as a guest and opposed to be on a tour. And then the car, which is called the Beast, being on the tarmac, we were allowed to take all types of pictures from me, the president landing, getting into the car. So another cute little short story is he would come down the stairs and he would run down the stairs the same way every time. So this one time he was going over to greet, this was at the Air Force Academy, and he was going over to greet guests. So as the president walks along, he waves to the media, he waved to us, and then as he walks, the car, the Beast, goes along with him. So he went, he greeted the guests, he took pictures, and he got to the end, so they had to open the door on the left side because that is the side he was on. Well, he didn't like that, and actually, he never did that. He would walk around the car and he would get in on the right side. Not on the left side, not on the driver's side, but on the right side. He would open his door because the door wasn't open. He would open the door and get in. So those are just some of the things that I put in Defining the Times, because I wanted you to come along with me, not only as a photojournalist, but as a person that had the opportunity to do something that not many get to do. Speeches. There are all of his speeches from beginning to the last speech that he gave. Even his last press conference is in the book. And so I haven't seen some of the White House journalists, for them to see what they said, the question that they asked, and how he responded. His accomplishments. People don't realize how many accomplishments he had. He had over 400 accomplishments. And I just, I just wanted you to give you everything I could possibly think of for you to enjoy this journey. And even though the pictures are in Colorado, it still doesn't matter because he was the U.S. president. And for some reason, which I'm really glad, is that he loved coming to Colorado. We have maps on how the United States voted. We have the Electoral College. A lot of people don't understand about the Electoral College. So I would say, if you get the book, take a moment and learn about the Electoral College, since we have election coming up in 2020. Defining the times can be used as a textbook. My girlfriend taught from a defining moment. It can be used as a textbook. It can be used as a history book. I'm proud to say that both my books, A Defining Moment and Defining the Times, have now been inducted into the history of Colorado. So I hope that you have enjoyed this talk. I didn't want it to be boring. I wanted you to have fun. I wanted you to come along with me on this journey in words. And I truly hope that you will pick up Defining the Times. And you will also, if you go to my website, which is www.definingthetimes.com, you will see that interview that I had with Channel 4. And maybe it'll make you understand a little bit why it was so important for me to tell my story. Because maybe someone out there, really, I promise you this formula works. If you work hard, if you keep God first in your life, and if you always believe in you, you will persevere in whatever goal or project you decide to do. Thanks for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.